check out these members of the Poop Troop. Citizen Guardian. A Fish is a Nose Life. My Aussie Garden and Kitchen. Dusty Data. Garden State Gardener. NASCAR Nana Gang. Ginger Ninja. Gray Man Prepping. Buttercup. Viper. Bob 942. Mama Bear Prepping. Gardener Josh. The Big Blue House Homestead. Prep Forest. Sandra Moody.
Hey. How's everybody doing tonight? It's good to see everybody. Thank you for coming in this evening. We're supposed to have Bob in here, but I'm having issues. Like, I put the link in the chat and YouTube just blocks it. Normally, it doesn't do that. How interesting. So, Bob, if you're here, go to the welcome underneath the description. It says, "This is for Bob," and that is the Melon app link. It's in the description of this video, and then I'll wait for you to come up. So yeah, it's good to see everybody this evening. And yeah, I don't know what I'll be doing for next week. My husband is having surgery on the 15th. And so, you know, I'm gonna maybe probably overcompensate my lives for making more video and just make more videos. That'll probably be easier. I don't know if I'm going to cancel anything as of yet. We'll see. But yeah, my husband is having surgery. So thank you all for being here tonight. So now we got Bob. He finally came in. Thank you so much, Bob, for being here. Here he is. Hello, Bob.
Hola.
And I'm sorry about that. Sometimes YouTube does that to me. And I don't know why. It just won't share the link and it won't share email addresses. It won't share links to other things. It's like the moderators, the big brother of YouTube, like blocks it out. So I apologize.
It's
I don't know
me. Just
I don't
blame
know
me.
what's going on.
I'm a dad and a husband. Blame me. I'm used to it.
And we got Buttercup in the house. Thank you so much for being here, sweetie. We absolutely adore you. So yeah, so the main purpose of having Bob on is one, he knows a lot of stuff, and we actually really love Bob. He's always on in the chat now and hangs out with us quite frequently. And so I thought we could just, you know, he could tell us a little bit about his life. His life is very interesting. He was in the Air Force, and he worked for Boeing. So he just has a lot of cool stories and information that people love to hear. And so I thought we could do that this evening with Bob. So Bob, where are you originally from? You don't have to give me, you know, your coordinates or anything, but what city?
A small city in the Cascade Mountains.
Oh, okay.
Very small city. Yeah.
So you grew up in a small town?
No, I moved out of there when I was very young because I was an accident. My parents already had 2 kids. And I was serious. I was a freak of nature. I was an accident. And my dad couldn't afford to work for the railroad anymore. So he was already a journeyman pipe fitter. So we had to move down to the lowlands where he could get a job in the shipyards and construction work as a journeyman pipe fitter to afford to feed 3 kids. So yeah. That's how got us down here, Seattle area.
Oh, okay. So up until, I know you've had some issues with Seattle and stuff like that, but up until those points, do you like living there?
Yeah, I like living in where I'm at. It's a smaller suburbs. I do like living here, except for the winters. I've got seasonal depression, and this is the worst place in the world for seasonal depression. You're gonna go crazy.
Northeast Ohio. Northeast Ohio gets tons of rain here.
Rain and no sun and cold and but you know, I started traveling overseas during the winter to get out of here, and I don't need any pills or anything because of that. Just go in the sun and get some heat and exercise.
Yeah. Yeah, nothing a little vitamin D can't cure for sure.
Exactly. And some
Um,
PT.
so okay, so you worked for Boeing and
Hmm.
you were an airplane mechanic.
Hmm.
Um, explain explain what you do in your garage as far as that's concerned. Does that have to do with, is that just a hobby, like you're doing stuff you're, or is that something that you did at Boeing and too, and so you're just, continuing that at home?
Um, I make everything for my preps.
Oh, okay.
Everything. I've even made furniture for the inside of the house.
Oh,
It's all.
okay.
I'm all self-taught. I didn't do too much parts fabrication at Boeing or in the Air Force. Not too much. Some simple brackets and some nut plates and riveting and things like that. But virtually everything that I need comes from roadside steel, from thrift store steel. Almost everything is made out of recycled materials by hand.
Okay.
So
Nice.
I had not had any welding lessons since 1981.
Hmm.
So I had to pick up my own machinery and learn how to use it, and all self-taught.
Yeah, that's really cool, Bob.
But
I like
what
that.
I do make a little bit of money in here, especially for making those ozone symbols. You see that right at the banner on my page. That's how I make some extra cash. A friend of mine, he's in a church band and he knows a lot of local bands, and he'll go round up their symbols and he'll bring it into me, and I modify them for a flat rate, and I hand them off to him, and whether he sells them or not, I don't care.
Wow.
I worked with him for years at Boeing, so we're both kind of double dipping even at Boeing.
So working for Boeing, like how did that happen? It was how did you get that position there?
I had applied at Boeing years before I went in the Air Force. And if you don't have any, at the time, it was paper applications. And if you didn't have any kind of aircraft experience, or if you were not a journeyman in one of the trades like sheet steel or iron workers, they wouldn't even talk to you. So I enlisted in the Air Force for 4 years, and all the training I got in the Air Force, and I showed up with a professionally made resume, and this lady who was reviewing the applications, she looks at my resume and she goes, "You did all this stuff, Robert?" "Yes, ma'am. There's my DD 214, all that." "Oh yeah, they'll call you."
Oh, that's so
so
cool.
so
That's so
that's how
cool.
I got in, and I got started on the production line on the Boeing 747s in Everett, and I did about a year or more up there, and then I got a position on the 737s in Renton, Washington, production line. That's where I started, and Boeing Boeing was very careful to promote people until you have about 10 years on the job. So that's when I started moving up. I never went into management. I had no wishes to go into management.
Yeah.
That's a politician's job. I'm not a politician.
Yeah. That's really cool, Bob, that you
Mhm.
did that. And um I had something in my head now. I'm totally forgot what I was going to say. I do that a lot.
It's this handsome blue shirt that threw you off, didn't it? Isn't it? I know. I know. Everyone likes this shirt.
So you liked the Air Force, right? You that was what, just icing on the cake for you because you wanted to work for Boeing, but
Yeah, that was part of it.
that's really cool.
I also wanted to get some hands on in many different places and different things. And the last squadron I was in was very educational. It was what calls phase inspection hangars. We'd tug in an airplane on Monday morning, and we'd deskin the airplane except for fuel cells. We couldn't take the panels off of the fuel cells. We stripped all the panels off first thing, and then we worked off of tech orders that would the jived with my specialty code. My specialty code was a hydraulics pneumatic system specialist, and I would go in and inspect these different parts of the airplane, looking for described defects and defects that I already knew that needed to be repaired. And that was the discipline in the Air Force, was you must follow the tech orders. You do not deviate from your paperwork ever for any reason. You will follow the directions, you know. And from there, they saw I had come from a component repair squadron in hydraulic systems where I took different hydraulic modules and I'd put them on a test stand and operate them and troubleshoot and repair the modules, test stand them again, then give it to a 7 level mechanic, and he would sign it off, and it would go back through the supply system. So CRS, we were kind of looked down on. As this squadron I ended up in was called EMS, that worked for the whole wing, because they would say, "Oh, you guys in component repair, you know, you're lazy, you sit around." And
No, you plus this
I,
stuff.
I earned my stripes. I'll tell you 2 examples where I earned my stripes. Was it was like a Friday night and one on the 430th AMU airplanes, and you got 5 days to deskin that airplane, clear all the defects, put the panels back on, and tow it out and do an engine run. That was on a one Friday night, and the power drive unit for the leading edge slats, uh, one of the hydraulic tubes was leaking on the PDU. So they called me over, you know, have you ever changed one of these? Where do we start? And I said, no, just hang on, man. Let me run back to my old shop. I'll sign out a tool and I'll be right back. So I was able to use the tools that I learned in component repairs. Took a fitting out, a special fitting with a special tube, replaced it, tightened down the B nut, and I said, run the mule. No more leaks. And all of a sudden, all these guys went, man, you just saved us 3 days of work. I said, okay. And I got my second stripes, you might say, was we had a left main landing gear retract actuator was leaking at the end, at the rod end. So I said, okay, I'll handle this. Well, I removed it. I filled out the paperwork, removed it, and I went back to my shop where I repaired those in the shop. In about 20 minutes, I had the O-rings and the felt wipers removed and replaced, put it on the test stand, ops checked it, and my old shop chief goes, technically you're on another budget and we're really not allowed you to do that. But he goes, good effort, good effort. Next time, send it through supply. So, okay. Came back, bolted it on the airplane, ready for ops check. So that's when they went, hey, this there's a little something more to this guy than just a drooling imbecile,
That's so cool. So you proved yourself in the Air Force,
Yep.
and how high did you get in the Air Force? What were your ranks?
If you do a 4-year enlistment, the highest rank you can get is E4, and
Okay.
that time it was a 3 stripes, was called a senior airman, and if you re-enlist, then you could become a buck sergeant. That's all the higher you're going to get in a 4-year enlistment. The rank structure in the Air Force is very slow, but we did have good living conditions and things like that, lots of education. So
Yeah,
it kind of balances out, I guess.
it kind of evens out.
Yeah.
Hey, Karscar, thank you for coming in. This is the first time I've seen you in my chat, but I saw you make comments before, so thank you so much for being here at our live tonight. I appreciate you. So anyway, okay, so I'm gonna get a little personal, but without getting too personal, because I know how you are about things, so I don't want to reveal anything that's revealing. You know what I'm saying?
Bring it. Mm-hmm.
So I'm just, how did you meet your wife?
Oh,
Because
boy.
you love your wife so much. So
I
I'm
do.
just curious.
I fire her frequently, but I freaking adore her, man.
Aww.
Oh God. I had already been to the Philippines once before to meet another woman. That was on Yahoo Chat. Okay, that was a long time ago, way back when. And she was not exactly honest. You take that gamble.
Yeah, it's the internet, and
It is. And then one night I would usually meet that girl who I already had met before in the Philippines. I went to another chat room and I started talking to this lady, and her ID was jaded. Well, okay, so I would talk to who was now my wife. I would talk to her, waiting for the girlfriend to go to the net cafe. That was way back then, to log on. And she was pretty cool with me, my wife, because she knows that I wasn't full of BS. I was looking for a Filipina. I grew up with Filipinos and I know their customs and their culture. They're solid people, man. And I would talk to the now the internet mistress while I was waiting for the girlfriend to arrive. That's when I started learning about how much this other girl was hiding from me, was from my wife. Because one of the first questions my wife asked me was, "Did you meet her family?" I said, "No." Which in the States is no big deal. That's how we are, just you go out
Yeah.
together, and that's when she kind of went, she like red flags were shooting up, be careful, dude, be careful. Because if you meet a Filipina and you don't meet her family, huh, that ain't right. Because they're
Yeah.
all about family. So
I think the same works for like India too.
a lot of Asian cultures, a lot
Yeah.
of Asian cultures. And no matter how old you are, if you don't get permission from mom and dad, you're out, buddy. That's it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how old you are or what your life experiences are. But so the other one, the girlfriend that I met already went to the side and I started focusing on this one, who's now my wife. And she finally got to a webcam after 3 conversations. And there's this cute little Filipina sitting there, real modest. She said she was a civil engineer. I was okay, all right. So I looked up some civil engineering facts, and I mathematics quizzed her. So she turned on the webcam the next day or so, and I gave her some mathematics, some trigonometry. I said, okay, calculate this for me. And she went like this in front of the webcam. She goes, now you understand that engineers in the field, we already have this calculated for us in a book. I said, I don't, I understand. I work with engineers at Boeing. No, do it longhand on a piece of paper. Sure as shit she did. It was like, okay, okay. Now, how much area if you are grading a parking lot and it's paved and it's so many meters big, what and you need to install drainage for rainfall. What is the pitch of the drainage for rainfall? She immediately went, based our standards are based upon US standards, but sometimes they are different because of regions. And she said 3 degrees of pitch. And I said, why? So the solids will follow the
So
flow
you
of the
gave her a
liquid.
math lesson?
No, I quizzed her because she said she
That's
was
so
an
funny.
engineer. She said she was an engineer, and I threw her trigonometry and algebra and geometry, and then I threw her pitch and grade, and like, okay, she ain't full of shit. This is a real one. That's when I went tink 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 boom. I'm interested in you. And she just started medical school, just
Oh,
right
okay.
around, and I had to wait for her for 4 years to finish medical school. She had to finish her degree before she would. And she's so chill. She says, if you want to go to another girl, go ahead. But if you're still here when I graduate from medical school, I'll stay here and wait for you. That's
That's so
smart,
sweet.
man. That's smart, dude. You don't tie a dog down. You give him a choice. That's she's smart, man. On top of a bachelor's of engineering, she also pursued into a master's of business. All of
Wow.
that education up to a master's was paid for by academic scholarship. Every university she went to, she came in first or second in her class.
Wow.
And that's like, and she married a knuckle dragger.
Well,
I'm
she
just,
must have saw something in you that she liked.
yeah, yeah. It's been awesome, man.
Oh, that's so cute. That's a good
It
love
is.
story. And
It's
then you
all true,
quizzed her
man.
with some math.
Mathematics and pitch and angle and geometry and trigonometry. Yeah, I did. Yeah.
That's so funny. That's
I
so
remember
cute.
I remember one of the questions I asked her. Okay, I want you on longhand on a piece of paper, convert decimals to fractions. All right, now divide the fractions by 3. Add pi, and I said write down what is pi. 3.14. She's like, I did. She's to a real engineer. It's like you. Okay, now calculate the area, the inside area of a right triangle. She goes, okay, give me the measurements. So she poop. Yeah,
Wow. That's
yeah,
awesome. So
awesome
that's
lady.
what that went well for you, and you have a lot of kids, right, with her, and
No,
so
mm-mm.
oh
I
you
was
don't oh it's
mm-mm.
okay.
I was married before,
Oh,
so,
okay.
so was she. I
So you
had
guys
two
have
sons.
the Brady Bunch combined.
Basically, yeah, I had two sons, and then she had a son and daughter. And the son and daughter call me dad because I raised them. You know, I was, every Christmas plus a few weeks added on. I would stay in the Philippines for a few months, and you know, you got to wait about a year before you can get some of that. So,
Yeah. So what was it like? Okay, so you met her, and of course you
yeah.
have to meet the entire family. And did they cooked you dinner, right? Did they cook you dinner when you went over there and you met the entire family? Is that how it worked?
Right. Now, I played it very smart because I had already been into Manila and Makati.
Oh,
I've been
okay.
there. I've been, and that's nearby the embassy. So I didn't know this woman really. So I paid to fly her up from Mindanao to meet me in Makati City, because I don't really know who she is. So if I had to break and run, the embassy is right over there. I mean, seriously. I mean, you never know. You might wake up and your passport's gone and your
Yeah, that's
wallet. I mean,
scary.
you just don't know. So you got to be freaking street smart if you travel. So we spent a week or so together in Makati. Then we flew down to another island called Samal Island, and we spent a week on Paradise Resort. Uh,
Ooh.
so romantic, man. Then we went to the mainland of Mindanao, and here's the whole family, man, and the neighbors and everybody, cousins. It was the weirdest thing I ever seen, Corky. I mean, these people are greeting me like I'm like, I'm like, what the hell is this? Ain't real. This is not real. And they had me like the women in the family. They had me sit down in a chair outside, and all the women in the family sang songs and danced for me in the streets.
Aw.
It was like, what is this, man? This ain't for. Did I drop acid or something? This ain't real.
Yeah, because really American guys at that point would be running away.
Yeah,
Far, far away.
and I was so far off the tourist beaten path, man. I was there in an Islam area that was known for terrorism and violence, and I'm just sitting there like the one and only white guy, because the tourism in the Philippines back then wasn't built up. I was the only white guy I saw. Seriously, one. You know, it was like, if I ran, where the hell am I going to run to?
Yeah, really. Wow. Okay,
Yeah,
so
then
what was your first dinner there? Do you remember?
fish, big
It
old
was
fish. Yeah,
that's awesome.
I think I posted a video about that on my channel, Meet the Family, and I had their courtship there is far different than ours, and I was seated outside while the women and my brother-in-law were preparing dinner in his house, and a little kid comes up to me with a bottle of Coca-Cola. Now that's a freaking luxury.
Yeah.
It is. It is a luxury there. Just a bottle of Coca-Cola. Okay, it's already open, so I'm like, well, here goes, but I come in the
You're not drugged,
house.
so that's good.
No, 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 no. There was never any harm done to me at all, and I'm sitting there at a table, and her dad is sitting at the other end of the table, and I was being interviewed. by all the men in the family. Papa ushered the kids and the women outside. Out, get out. Time for the men to talk. And I passed the interview, and all the women were leaning in this great big window that has no glass there, just a shutter door. And he said something, and all the women jumped up and down and squealing and screaming, and I'm sitting there like, I don't know, I don't speak a word of your language. But that's how I passed the test, because Papa had the final say. It was weird, man. I mean, how dumb am I to go to a part of the country that I know is known for extreme violence and terrorism and not speak one word of that language is spoken?
It's because you knew, like deep down, you knew you
Yeah,
loved
yeah,
her, and you just knew,
yeah. I
and so
just
you
knew.
were willing to
Uh-huh.
risk it.
I'm willing to risk it. Yeah, I did. Yeah.
That's so cool. That's a great
Hmm.
story. Buttercup is fluttering over there. She's like, I love this beautiful story.
It's
So
and
awesome.
for all those years I waited for her to finish medical school. We talked on Skype twice a day, every day, every day,
That's so
without
cool.
fail. Yeah. Then I fly down there around Christmas time, and I got to get some.
That's funny. So, okay, so your wife, how long have you guys been living in the States then? Here
uh,
with your wife?
God, you'd have 13 years, I think,
13 years?
something like that. Yeah, 13, 14 years. Yeah, around
That's
13 years. Yeah,
um I don't know if this is too personal or not, but is there a huge age difference between you and your wife, or no? There's not.
5 years.
5 years? Oh,
5 years.
that's no
Yeah,
big deal.
yeah, yeah. We're
That's
both in our 50s. Hmm.
and she's just doing her doctorly duties and
Yeah, yep, yep.
wow.
She goes to work and saves lives every day.
That's
Saves
amazing.
American lives every day, and that's one heck of an immigrant. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's amazing. That's so cool.
Hmm.
Um Now, okay, so you live in an area of the country we all know about. We've seen it in headlines. We know what's
Yeah,
going on in that part of the country.
yeah.
What is it like living there now with all the issues over the past couple years?
Um, this area, the suburb people like me, we're gunned up. You
Yeah.
would not believe we are gunned up. We're ready for a fight, and that's the truth.
And is
Seriously.
that
Yeah.
like almost everyone in the area, pretty
Oh
much?
yeah, oh yeah. Because we can tell by going to the indoor range that there's every color of a couple in there practicing. They're all suburban. Is
What are
urban
the
and suburban.
what are the gun laws in your area? What is that for that state? Because I don't know.
Well, we just picked up. Mrs. got a new revolver today, a 357 Magnum. I've created a freaking monster, man. She's a shooter fanatic. A handgun, you've got to have a 21. You got to be over 21, and you get a background check, of course, and then you wait for 10 or 12 business days, and then you can come pick it up. An AR-15, you've got like a 10 or 20-day waiting period for
Okay.
that. Even if and even if you have a concealed weapons permit, you still have to wait for a handgun and for an AR-15.
I was just curious because I know, like in New York and stuff, they can only have so many rounds in a gun and stuff like that for
Mm,
carrying, and so they're a little more strict in New York City and New York and stuff. So I was
yeah,
curious, and I know that Washington is a little more liberal when it
yeah.
comes to stuff like that. So I was
Hmm.
curious if they had adopted the same as New York and New York City
Hmm.
and stuff like that. So
No, no. The capacity of magazines, the the gun stores are overflowing with tens of thousands of high capacity magazines.
okay.
Smart business owners.
Now, do you have legal, like do you have gun shows there and stuff like that? Like I know here in Ohio we have gun shows
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And do
Mhm.
you have to do the background? I mean, I guess you do I mean, how does that work? Do you have to go to a dealer to do a background check to do a civil trade between you and a neighbor? Or can you just trade guns? Because here you can just trade guns as long as you see somebody's driver's license.
I okay. You asked about what do you call it? The gun shows. You know,
Yeah.
you hear so much propaganda on the communist news network, and oh, the gun show loophole. And I was an FFL holder way back when, and there's no loophole. If you go to a gun show, you're buying from a dealer because
Right.
I was a member of the Washington Arms Collectors, and I'm like, what are these people spouting? They started this stuff a long time ago, a long time ago. Like, this is all lies. But um, you can get a document from Olympia to do a legal transfer. If I want to sell one of my firearms to a neighbor, you can get a document and do a legal transfer, or you can just
Just do
trade
it.
or buy. Yeah, you know.
Yeah, I was just curious how that works there.
Yeah, so
Um,
far it's still like that, as far as I
okay.
know. Yeah.
So, okay, all my life I wanted to move to Washington. I was in radio pretty hardcore and I wanted to move because I know Seattle,
Hmm.
Washington has the best radio channels in the country, basically.
Really.
I mean, besides LA, Seattle,
Hmm.
Washington is the thing, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So I always wanted to move there, but I have never been there. So what is it like? What is Olympia, and what is all that like living there? What is the environment? What is because I've never been there.
Well, currently, okay, the this is the bad part about living here. There's two bad parts. One is traffic because we live in a narrow corridor between the Pacific Ocean and the Cascade Mountains. So traffic is funneled in, heavy traffic. And since the the importing of fentanyl, that's the it's horrible. It
That's a
it's
shame.
awful. It's awful. I live in the burbs, and I won't go to downtown Seattle for any reason. I won't
It's
do it.
that bad.
It's that bad. Yeah, it's that bad. I have relatives in England, and they would like to come visit with us, but I told them in 2019, I said, you can come visit anytime you like. You're always welcome, but I will not take you to downtown Seattle. We're not going there for any reason, ever. We will not do it. You know, but
It's such a
currently,
shame.
currently with the method or with all the heroin and all that, the the every year in April, every year they come from the warmer climates and they come up here to the Seattle area and they flood us with their users. Same with April 1st. We had someone out front, and I got a video of that a meth meltdown about 50 yards away from the house. And then they stayed for the month of April, and then they disappeared because their dealer disappeared, and now they're back. And I have to stand guard out in the front of my house or sit outside in the back as just if there is someone on watch and on the compound here, the block, then they go they see someone on watch and they'll walk through and they'll divert and they'll go around. And 2 days ago I was sitting out front and the guy had just gotten done with his heroin. He's staggering because he's looking for a place to collapse and sleep, and he's coming across the road at me, and I just stood up and I pointed, go that way, go that way, don't come here. And he, I don't know where he went. He, long as he left my area, get out of here.
Wow.
It's like
Just
that every day here, Courtney.
destroying this country through drugs.
Hmm. Yeah, it's all coming from Shanghai. You
Hmm.
know, it's all coming from Shanghai through Mexico, and then comes right up the I-5 Interstate 5 corridor.
That's horrible.
It is.
I because I always thought like Washington State and Oregon and those places, I always thought they were the most beautiful places.
It is.
But
It is. It is. It is. And if you go out way out, then you're okay. But that's where they have the meth labs that they cook out there. If you
wow.
go way out, I don't go camping anymore. I
I
won't
mean,
do
I
it.
don't understand. Isn't marijuana legal there? So
Yeah,
why
it's
is
legal.
there like such a draw in meth? Like I don't get it. Like you could have marijuana fields, right?
Yeah, you can just buy it in a dispensary.
Doesn't
Yeah,
make any
just
sense.
show a Washington State ID and cash, and you can buy it. I've done it. I've done it a couple times. Just
Yeah.
test it out. You know, it's good stuff. Well, here's what I don't understand is that that worked really well because it used to be the young hoods would stand outside 7-Eleven passing around blunts, and as soon as it became legal, they disappeared. They're gone. They're at home or
Mm-hmm.
wherever. And I think they should do the same thing with the heroin and everything else. Just legalize it and take it out of the hands of the cartels.
Yeah. Man,
I
that
mean,
would
why
really
not?
tick them off, wouldn't it?
Oh boy, it would. But no politician will do that because
No, because they
they
have them in their
are.
back pocket.
That's right, and they're afraid of the cartels, and they
Yeah.
have every right to be afraid of them.
Yeah. That's too bad. That's too
Mm-hmm.
bad. So okay, so you live in Seattle, you're close to it, and you have those issues. Now,
Mm-hmm.
when did you become involved in prepping? When did this
Oh,
all happen for
I
you?
I was hoping you would ask that. It started 2 generations ago. I got a picture here. You know how I like to show pictures. This picture was taken in 1920. My grandmother was leaving the homestead in Montana with her husband and her 2 kids. And they were coming out west to look for work. And this was my grandma.
Oh my gosh, look at that wagon.
This
That is
was my
so
grandma.
cool.
The little one is my dad, and the taller one is my uncle Bill. He's passed away. He was killed by a drunk driver. But they took this wagon along with a second family from Montana all the way out to Washington State, and they had to survive along the way. They had my great grandfather gave them big bags of corn and beans so they'd have something, and they had to pick apples along the way, pick berries, do farm labor, cut wood. You know, my family and the McDonald's, and then they landed out here in the Pacific Northwest along the Puget Sound area. That's how prepping got started because my father saw his parents do it. I saw my parents do it, and that's where it planted the seed.
Yeah.
You know, but
Yeah. That's how
yeah.
most of it works, the canning thing. I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
canning thing has been passed on from like I know with Rebel Canners that was passed on through generation to generation.
Generations.
Yeah.
Now here's another picture of we grew all of our own food. Once we moved out of the mountains, and we had a garden in the mountains, but I was too little to remember it. I just saw it in pictures only. But we moved down to the lowlands in the Puget Sound area. And this is a picture my dad sent to me when I was still in the U.S. Air Force in 1987. He was retired. He retired at 63 as a journeyman pipe fitter. That's his potatoes.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's all compost, honey. There's no fertilizer, nothing. Everything was organic.
Nice.
All our own self-made compost. Mom, it was a ritual at the end of the summer. We'd have our every Sunday. We'd have our grandparents come over and have Sunday dinner with us. And at the end of the summer, we'd have a paper bag sitting between each of us and an empty paper bag sitting in front of us. We were cutting beans. Just sit there and talk as a family, cutting beans,
God, that would be
and
amazing.
all those ends of the beans, the tips we cut off, went back in the compost, paper bag included, and yeah, then we shell peas. Mom, we saved every jar that would fit a canning lid, every type of jar, mayonnaise, Planters peanuts, all that. And I remember my mom, she had a ritual because she wanted us out of the kitchen while she's canning, no distractions. She was extremely sanitary, and she would boil the jars first, had a big old pair of tongs and pick them up and let them cool. Dad made her a special large cutting board so she could let the jars cool before she even put any food inside of them. That's that's how I got started, was seeing it every day and participating in it. Now I don't have a garden. If I grew any food outside, it would be stolen immediately. Just like
Yeah.
my neighbor tried it
That's
for a
how it
couple
was
of
like
years.
living in the city for me. We
Yeah, that's
couldn't
how it
have
is.
tomatoes or anything like
Mm-mm,
that.
mm-mm. One of my neighbors tried 2 or 3 years in a row. I think this is the third year, and she moved her tomatoes right up on the porch, and when these guys come and rob the food, they spare nothing. They just rip the plants right out, tear it apart, and throw it. And off they go. So I had to shift from providing my own food to I take my time that I would have been doing that. Like I grew up with a garden hoe in my hand, just out there. You don't get the food to grow properly. You're going to go hungry, and that's the way it was.
Right.
I had to shift that to home security, you know, because we're surrounded by thousands of people, and I don't trust people, man. I just don't. I don't trust people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I
I don't
can't.
blame you. You live in
I
an area where
Yeah.
it's hard. It's hard to trust people.
If the neighbors are being friendly, my first thing in my mind is, well, what do you want?
Hmm.
And after the freak down the street, no, you stop right there. You don't come in my house for any reason. Out. You know, I hate to be like that, but it's necessary in the suburbs and the urban settings. You have to be, because
Yeah.
you can't trust anybody.
Right.
Mhm.
Totally agree there.
Mhm.
Um, so okay, so you learned prepping, and it seemed like it was quite the generational thing, you know.
It was, yeah. And
Yeah.
the U.S. Air Force refined my skills, because there's no branch of service that's better at prepping than the U.S. Air Force. I'm telling you the truth, man. They taught me kitting, organization, inventory, um, set up like your mobility bags. Put everything in there on the list and a few more things for barter and trade, and put it away and don't touch it. Don't touch it again. Don't play with it. Leave it alone. I've done that with some of our shooting gear. I get it set up for the daughter, the wife, for all the different rifles and shotguns and all that. Everything's set up, and I put a hook on the wall, hang it up, and with strict instructions: don't touch it, leave it alone. It's set up. That's everything you need to fight. That's kind of a D thing for me to do, but I've seen with my sons, they would get their gear out and they take it all apart and it's scattered. Well, where's your gear? Well, I don't know where this is at. This is at. Find it. You know. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, guys. If you have any questions for Bob, feel free to put them in the chat, and he will answer them to his best abilities.
Yeah.
If they are too invasive, he cannot answer them.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So my efforts here, since to me, with my life, the most important prepping thing is tools.
Hmm.
Tools will save your life. They will save your life. You can make anything you want, and the only thing the neighbors see you bringing in is steel, bars of steel, bed frames, rolls of baling wire, whatever. They don't know what I'm doing in here.
Yeah.
You know, I'm set, man. I got stuff all locked up like you would not believe.
Yeah.
A small restaurant. They used Mrs. Smith's pie. Yeah, my mom did use a really big pressure cooker, because she said it made everything go pretty fast and reliable, you know. But that was back then. But now, I can't do any canning. I can't grow anything.
Viper has a question. He says, "My question is, military wise, would you do it all over again?"
Yes, I would. Yeah, I would. It was a big sacrifice, but it gave me the discipline and focus that I needed to help me mature into a full grown adult man. You know,
Fishes wanted to know number one prep after water.
noodles, dried beans, canned meat. You start there with like Mongol beans, any kind of canned beans, any kind of dried beans, um, especially noodles. Noodles, you can beat them and tear them up and do whatever you want to them, and you can still eat it. You can throw anything into a pot of noodles that you want and eat it. I'd say noodles and beans is the next,
Yeah.
and spam, of course.
And beans are usually really easy to grow too.
Yeah. I wish I could. I really do, but it's not possible at this
Yeah.
time.
Um, I say usually really easy because I had a big mishap this year with my kidney beans. We'll see how they turn out. But
Well, just keep
I
trying.
planted them and I only got like 5 to come up, and I'm like,
Hmm.
why?
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
there. Al said sardines. That's another one. I've got the American style sardines right now, and we've also got some cans of the Filipino style of sardines. Theirs is in a different type of a sauce. We started off with what my wife ate in the FEMA camps during the evacuation to get away from the Muslim warring clans and the communist war. That's what we started with right there. Dry noodles, beans, sardines. Um, it was a few other things like spam, Argentina corned beef. A lot of times the military would take the good stuff and feed the civilians what was left over, but
So,
that's
because your wife has lived through it
uh-huh.
before,
Yeah,
she has tremendously helped you with your preps
very, very much.
and knows what to do. That's very
Uh-huh.
cool.
Now, during the first uh, Trump elections, what sparked her to finally get firearms and get some real training was she was watching the riots down in Portland during the when Trump was running against with Clinton, and they were screaming the same slogans as she heard in the Philippines, but in a different language. No justice, no peace. That ain't original, guys. That is a communist doctrine. My neighbor or my maintenance guy here, he's from the Ukraine, and he said the same thing. They're screaming the same thing in the Seattle and Portland streets as they did back in the Ukraine. That's when my wife says to me one day, because she didn't want to handle firearms. She's a lifesaver, but she says, "How many can I own? Is it what are the restrictions?" And then we started from there. And now I've created a freaking monster, man.
That's hilarious. That's actually quite important that she
Hmm.
remembered that.
Oh yeah,
And I have a lot of respect for immigrants, and I hate the fact that the tabloids and the media
yeah,
says says otherwise. And my grandparents were immigrants, and it's funny how they say that, um and yet Melania was an immigrant, and yet they basically ripped her apart in everything that she did, what she wore, down to the speeches that she made. And it's really upsetting to me, because
hmm,
I have a lot of respect for immigrants. And my great grandfather came from Austria, and and my grandmother came from Germany, and so um, they were immigrants right off the boat. So I
yeah,
have a mad respect for people that want to come here and live the dream. And Viper, he's an immigrant. you
yeah.
know He- he's from France.
Hmm.
And so I just have a massive respect for people like that, and it
Me
irritates
too.
me when the media and stuff push it another direction.
Now, here's something directly from Mrs. who's lived through Civil War, martial law. She also got caught in between many times the Muslim clan wars, machine gun fire, all that. She's seen a lot of people die. I really truly believe her when she says this. She says, I said, what do you think the chances that this is going to spread into the suburbs and across the country? And she says, well, look at it this way. If most Americans can afford a 2 or 3 story house with a little bit of land, every house can afford a firearm. And she said, if the shooting starts out there, it won't last long. It won't last long. Because as well as I do, if somebody comes on your farm, a 6 or 8, 10 of them, I'm not going to say what you're going to do, but I would assume what you're going to do when they're rushing towards your house to rape you and take everything you've got and kill your husband. I mean, that's what they do. They're murderers. So the missus says directly, if the shooting does start here in this country, everyone is so well armed, it's not going to last long.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Bob.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, there's a lot of chatter in the side chat. Oh, here we go. This is, I think, of a question for you. It says, have you read Jerry Allhorn's novel
No,
series,
no,
Survivalist?
no. I've lived through some of this kind of stuff. I've lived through it. I've been in martial law overseas several times. Nothing better than walking that tightrope, man. I instruct the whole family on shooting. We don't do any roll around and throw grenades or anything. But I tell you, we can hit our targets with anything that we have in this house. And the wife taught us how to use a knife and sticks, Filipino martial arts. This is the wrong house. This is the wrong house. If that's why I don't mind showing a firearm once in a while. If anybody's out there thinking about robbing my place, you're coming to the wrong place. Don't come here. Go to the neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
They're idiots. They probably don't even have a bag of popsicles in the freezer.
Yeah, I completely understand that. I've witnessed of moronic things happening.
Yeah.
Specifically, the night that President Trump made his speech about what was going on in the country and the Red Dragon and everything that's going on. My husband and I went to the store immediately and we filled up two
Mm-hmm.
giant grocery carts because we at that time
Mm-hmm.
we have some preps, but we weren't ready for that. So we filled
Yeah.
up everything immediately. And the things that we saw people in their carts, the things that we saw was unbelievable.
I
Like,
could imagine.
okay, we were going to be shut down for possibly at that time a couple of months, and people are freaking buying hot dogs and ramen noodles. We had
Yeah.
no idea if it would have lasted longer. If it would have lasted longer, people would have starved to death
Yeah.
because,
As long as the hot dogs are canned, you're solid.
yeah,
And noodles, then you're solid.
but it was absolutely crazy. So we bought a lot of canned goods, a lot of stuff that would have, that lasted, and it lasted us 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
We
And
didn't even
I,
have to go
I
to the grocery store.
I rely really heavily on advice from my missus because she's super intelligent and experienced. So at the same time, we're getting her firearms and getting her trained was when the ammo shortages came in, and you've got to be real patient about that because stuff is showing up now.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I was welding together extra secure facilities for our food, water. I weld. I can make anything, and I got a milling machine and a lathe. I can virtually make anything. Get tools, guys. Get tools and learn how to use them. That's very important. That's when we started. We always had extra food, always have, but that's when we really started bulking up. And since I'm retired, I could go to any supermarket in the morning when the shelves are restocked overnight, and I can grab anything I want right there.
Yeah. Viper's being really funny when he says this, but he says, "Tell
Yeah.
Bob I said, worst case, blind them with Jergens cream in the eye."
Well, I have some sedatives, and I'll bring them down to the basement. And we'll, we'll have a body crab party. Yes, yes, sirree.
Rocky Mountain High wanted to know what branch you were in. He was in the Air Force.
Yeah.
And for those of you that don't know, we both have like a funny sense of humor. So we are
Hmm.
joking. We are completely
Yeah.
joking, guys. We are
Yeah.
not creepy in any way. It's
Yeah. I
funny.
don't. I don't. I'm a pretty solid, stable guy. I wouldn't have been able to work on airplanes my whole life if I was, wacko or something.
Let's see. We're running on 10:30, guys. Any more questions for Bob? What's going on there? Or it's he has a very interesting life. Um, and feel free
I've
to to ask him some questions.
I've had a good life. Yeah. I'm really lucky to have a very supportive missus. She handles the money in the house, and when we started bulking up with different things for home security and put away for food, water, all that, she would throw up money into my account and go ahead, go get it,
Nice.
go get it, go get it now. So well, and that whole toilet paper thing. Come on, come on. I know I've lived overseas where they don't have toilet paper. I know how to take a number two without it. So it didn't. It's like people are stupid, man.
Exactly. But Viper wants to know, Bob, do you have any medals from being in the
Yeah,
military?
yeah, just a few. The U.S. National Defense Medal, um, Good Conduct Medal, and the Marksmanship Medal.
Rocky Mountain High wants to know, where were you stationed in the Philippines?
No, I wasn't stationed there. No, 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 no. The story I was telling about the pesos came from other men who'd been stationed there or TDY. I never experienced that there. By the time I got to the Philippines, all that stuff was just, the pesos and all that stuff. It was all cleaned up. And I have been to a few of the bars that the GIs used to go to, but they're pretty classy. They're pretty classy.
Fishes wants to know, if you leave, will you come back, or you just plan on
Um,
living there forever?
we're planning on both. We have some more paperwork to do in the Philippine Embassy in San Francisco, that will allow us to travel back and forth easily. And the missus is going to get dual citizenship. And now I can't get dual because that would mean I would have to surrender my U.S. passport, and I ain't doing that.
Yeah,
You
I don't
know,
blame you.
so that's one of the reasons why I got her with a Mossberg 500 pump shotgun, and I trained her well on it. The 590 is basically the same thing what I bought for her. They sell those in the Philippines. So all we'd have to do is go down to a gun store, buy a pump shotgun, and have that in the house, and we're solid. We're The plan is, if possible, we'll spend at the minimum time over there will be 6 months over the seas, 6 months here. That's why
Okay.
we're working. That's why we're working on getting the kids a house so that we can spend 6 months with the kids and 6 months at our house overseas.
Okay.
Mhm.
That makes sense. Thank you guys for asking the questions in the chat. Those were actually really good questions.
They are. But who knows? I might go over there and not come back. Just apply for a different visa and just stay.
Yeah.
I got nieces and stuff there that'll take care of me into my old age. So you know, I just don't want to be separated from my missus that long. I love her.
Yeah.
She's my Mrs. Sexy. She's my number one.
Aw, that's so
Until
cute, Bob.
until a cute butt walks by, then I forget all about her.
You're funny. But so what is your favorite dish that your wife makes for you?
Oh, my favorite dish. You know what? I'm pretty much a chimp. I'm a knuckle dragging baboon. I am. I'm simple. You know what? She made me a delicious breakfast today. It was just bread, uh, warmed up in a pan with butter. She mixed up some tuna, a can of tuna fish with some veggies and a little bit of Parmesan cheese, a couple of grilled cheese sandwiches. I think that's one of my favorites. I mean, she cooks this beautiful exotic stuff, but I'm a chimp. I'm a booger picking moron. You put it in front of me, man, I will eat it. Cold,
That's funny.
hot, I will. I'm simple. I am not a fussy eater. I never have been.
That is funny. So your wife makes all these beautiful dishes, and you
Yeah,
prefer tuna
yeah,
fish.
yeah. A grilled tuna sandwich with a little bit of Parmesan cheese on it. Boom! I'm solid, man.
That's awesome. Thank you, City Girl, for coming in the chat. Thank you all for being here tonight. We're having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Rocky Mountain High said, "That's awesome, man."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. Bob, how old are you? Rocky Mountain High wants to know.
I'm over 50.
He is
Yeah,
over
I'm
50, guys.
over 50. So was my wife, but and I finally convinced her to stop pulling her gray hair out like a lot of Asian people will do. And she finally got a bottle of Miss Clairol or whatever to dye her hair. And yeah, but I don't care about my gray hair. I love having gray hair, especially when I go over to Asia, man. When you've got gray hair over there, baby, you are the king.
Really?
You're the king. Yeah, you got gray
Man,
hair, man. You are respected. You
that's
know.
so cool. They have a really, really respective society over there. It's
hmm
it's it's nice. It's very nice.
I've had to learn politics being married to a Filipina and an Asian in general. I'll give you some examples. It's like when I first arrived there, I always have a gift for my sister-in-law who lives there. It's her house. The women run the country. The men are the king, but the women run the country. And I'll go to my brother-in-law and say, bro, is it okay if I give your wife a gift? Yeah, bro, go ahead, go ahead. Like last time, I gave her some really good carbon steel kitchen knives, a whole set. I walked in, just Miss Belin, Merry Christmas. Got a big hug, and now all of a sudden, it's okay if her husband drinks beer with me all he wants. you get it? It's politics. So you've got to learn international politics to live abroad. And I send money to, and my wife and I both have educated all of his daughters by sending money, and they can't pay back with money, but they can pay you back with like making sure you never travel alone. Um, like my Ate Taltal, she's my favorite. She's awesome, very extrovert, and she's a registered nurse. I don't have to worry about health care if I stay there 6 months alone, because she will pick me up in her car and take, because we bought her a car and all that, and she will take me to the doctor. Like I said, she can't pay back with money, but she will pay back with things like that, and check on me and hound me. Uncle, you're supposed to take your vitamins or whatever.
Oh, they take care of you. It's so cute.
They do. All I have to do is say to them when I'm there, I'll say, I go to Ate. That means oldest sister in the family. My wife is Ate, oldest sister in the family. It's a position of authority. And when I'm there, I'll say, boy, Ate, I'm hungry. And she'll delegate to one of the other daughters to go go feed uncle. Just put it in the dog bowl. He'll eat anything.
Oh my god.
I'm joking about that part.
That's hilarious though.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Yeah, I think up there, Gil said it's better to have gray hair than not any hair at all.
That's true. Yeah, yeah. But you know what, Gil? I'm telling you the truth. It's a weird thing over there, and a lot of Southeast Asian cultures. If they see if you have no hair, if you're bald on your head and a round belly, that means that you at your home country are in a position of authority. You lost your hair because you're thinking so much because you're some kind of a manager.
Ooh.
And you have a round belly because you eat very well. So it's I'm still learning stuff all the time, man. I am still learning. There's a lot to learn, but
Ginger Ninja, I'm not too sure about that. I thought it was that they would renew it every month too. So,
what's that?
the memberships, I thought they were just automatically enrolled every month, but she said that she had to go in and re-up her membership to the poop troop.
Oh, I'm probably going to have to do the same. I hope I can remember my password for the, what do you call it, the how to pay it or whatever. I think I did it for 1 month. Same with the the program we're using to talk right now. Like just test it out and see
Yeah.
If I see if I'm a freak like me can fit in with a group of people, which is hard to find, you know.
Well, we strive ourselves in pretty much getting along with anybody. We have a big family here, and we genuinely are just a bunch of goofy people that just
Hmm.
like to get together and have a good time. No
Uh,
drama,
yeah, that's
just
yeah.
fun.
Mhm.
And
I know that you lean more towards gardening, and I'm into prepping and self protection and all that. Don't take it too seriously.
yeah.
Just one little bit at a time. Just one thing at a time. One day, one little part. Because I've been waiting weeks to get these certain hollow point bullets. Been actually a couple months. And when okay, they're on the shelf in this store. Bang, get a box of them and replace the target rounds with hollow points. Just one thing at a time. Just don't stress over it. That's
Yeah.
you know.
Oh man, I stress over the garden sometimes though. I ain't gonna lie.
Oh, don't do
This
that.
year was like the year of like I've never it's almost like I've never gardened before this year. It was like we had new scenarios thrown at us like in every direction, and last year I was fighting bugs. This year I was fighting the weather. It was like
Yeah.
insane.
Hmm. Hmm.
It was insane. But now I have like a 10-foot long squash plant out there. Oh my god.
Good
I can't
deal.
wait to
Good.
do that. I cannot wait to do my another garden tour video,
Hmm.
because
Cool.
seriously, that squash is like taking over the garden. It's like so big. It's like it's gonna eat me.
Eat them when they're young, honey. When they're young and tender, you can slice them up and put them on your salad, fresh and raw. We never used any compost in our gardens ever. Nothing. Chicken manure got thrown in with the regular compost, and we'd let it sit for a year. We had two compost boxes, and we planted winter ryegrass. That's a tip for you. Plant winter ryegrass because it keeps the weeds down in the winter. Then till that in, just before you get ready to till it in, throw your compost out there, let it sit for a few weeks and get nice and mushy, rototill it into the soil. We never used any fertilizer of any kind. It was all natural.
Yeah.
Winter ryegrass, you gardeners, trust me on that.
Ginger Ninja, you might have to go through the link in the page and on my page and try it all over again. I'm sorry that that's happening to you.
Yeah, that's right, fishes. It's a cover crop. It keeps the weeds down and it dies easily in the spring when you till it under. We had rototillers. Yeah, cover crop is just awesome. I don't. We only use winter ryegrass, and it just
Yeah.
boom, you're done.
Yeah, now we thought about growing that way. We do grow in the ground,
Hmm.
in a certain section, but
Hmm.
there is an area in our yard that is extremely low, and it didn't happen this year because it was a really weird year. But typically, the one part of our yard is always flooded, and that's why we have
Oh,
ducks. We have ducks. They just love to go out there and they play in the water
you
and
bet.
whatever.
Yeah.
But this year it was just dry. And we have one section of the garden that always is wet. So we put raised beds over that.
Hmm. That
So
makes
that,
sense. Yeah.
yeah, so that when we planted in the ground the last couple of years, we planted in the ground and just it was horrible. So we decided to do the raised beds right there, and so that's how we got really into raised beds, and stuff like that. Typically, I grew up gardening, like in the
Yeah.
ground. I never had raised beds or anything like that. So
Yeah. Yeah. It was with me. Gardening and prepping is generational. It's just I learned from the older people, and they learned from the older people, and what's weird is my brother and sister never picked it up. They never even looked into it. They'll go to the store and get one can of beans for dinner. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
yeah,
they're just idiots. In my opinion, they're just idiots.
yeah. I think my grandmother and my great grandmother, I think they were preppers, even though I mean, then it wasn't called prepping; it was
Yeah,
living, you know.
it was survival.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it
but
was. It was.
I think later on in their years, when didn't have the gardens and they didn't can anymore. I think it's just like they started. they started hoarding food. My great grandmother
Hmm.
always had massive amounts of canned goods everywhere,
Yep. Yep.
constantly.
Hmm. My
And so
mom
did
did too.
my great grandmother did, and my grandmother did. And so after they passed and we're cleaning out their house, we're finding canned goods from like 1984. You know what I'm saying? Like
Hmm.
they
Hmm.
just, and then my mom
Hmm.
has kind of inherited that too. My mom's
Yep.
cupboards, and she has two refrigerators. She's the only person there, but she has two refrigerators and a cupboard filled with food to the brim.
Yeah,
The
that were
it's
they from the Great? That were. Pardon me for interrupting. They from the Great Depression era?
Yes, my great grandmother and my
That's
grandmother
it.
were. Yeah.
That's it. That was my parents were too. They were from the Great Depression, and they know what being hungry was like.
Yeah.
Both of them.
And so my grandfather was the same way.
Hmm.
I mean, if there was just a tin can, he saved it.
Yeah, that's how
So,
that generation was. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. My mom hoarded canned goods. Even up to her very elder years, and I helped her out with it because I would see what she was hoarding, and I'd go reach in the back and get the oldest one out and replace it without telling her, because sometimes the old folks get really angry about that stuff. So I just did it in secret. Can of tomato soup, and I go make a grilled cheese and tomato soup. Mom, here's some tomato soup. Have some lunch before I go to work. And that's how I did it. I had to help her out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love I love history. I'm a huge history person, and I love collecting things. I try not to collect things anymore because
Yeah,
became hoarders, so we got rid of a ton of stuff. But
yeah,
I
yeah.
love collecting things. Specifically, my grandfather. We had an old well house in our basement, and I opened it up before they sold this house I'm living in now, and I looked in there, and there was 12 huge gallon-sized jugs of plum whiskey, wine
Ooh, ooh.
in the well, and I'm like, I'm taking those. I didn't care who. I'm like, those are mine. So I took them home, and I was pregnant, and like I don't know, 7 years later, I was pregnant. My husband's like, we're gonna move, and we got these 12 gallons of your grandfather's liquor in this house. Like, what are we gonna do with this? So I'm like, okay. I'm like, I guess we can dump them out. But I said we're saving two of them. So he was dumping them out. He's like, I'm gonna try this one. Seriously, it was like 40 years old. I'm not joking. So I'm like, I'm ticked at this point because I'm like, I'm pregnant and I can't drink it.
Yeah. Mhm.
And so he opened it up and he took a swig of it, and he's like, oh my God. He's like, that's the strongest, most wonderful plum wine I've ever had in my life. And I'm like, and I couldn't taste it. I was so mad. But it was like, yeah, after 40 years, he said it was so good.
Mhm.
I was like, that's
Well,
amazing.
I got a story similar to that. Is my dad was taught me self-reliance, which is big in your prepping. Be self-reliant. So he got some books from the library, and he made a still, how to distill corn. Corn, make it into alcohol. And he kept trying and trying until he got that stuff like almost pure, but he still couldn't get it to mix with gasoline or you know so what he did without me knowing was he did get some charcoal and put it in some canning jars with that almost pure alcohol. My buddy were out in my dad's workshop, and we were smoking some green, hanging out. And there was a shelf, and I said, Don, you need one of these boxes or something I don't remember. And look what we found. We found this stash of oak. So he took and charred up oak, and he put it in these jars, and it was like, dude, check this out. This stuff's almost 10 years old,
Yeah, aged in oak for 10 years. People would
man.
die for stuff like that.
Oh, he and I started hitting off that stuff, and we only took a few shots, and it was almost pure alcohol. And he had to stay the night. because by the time he and I got done drinking a few shots of that stuff, we had a loudmouth soup. Ah! My dad heard us downstairs. He goes, "Go to bed, you idiots! You're not driving anywhere. You stay here tonight, Don." You
That is funny.
know.
Oh, isn't that such a great story though? Like,
Mhm.
and I always think like I have this picture of my grandfather and my dad even. There used to be a giant cellar, wine cellar,
Mhm.
out the back here. My grandfather years ago had it demolished, so it's no longer there, but they had it there. And I have this picture of my grandfather and my dad and the neighbor that lived across the street. They were making wine, and there was this giant wine press and
Oh yeah.
in
Mhm.
those crocks they
Uh
put them
huh.
in
Yeah.
crocks.
Yeah.
So it was funny when we first moved in here. The people that lived here before us left a ton of stuff, just left. I mean, they left like a couple $1,000s worth of lumber in the barn and the old chairs, all this stuff. And there was this old crock, right? I'm like,
Mhm.
where did this come from? Because the crock in itself looked like it had been thrown in a fire at one point because it was like it's all bubbly, it was like weird looking. I'm like, I
Yeah.
wonder where this came from. I'm looking at that picture and I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, they left that behind because that was probably my grandfather's crock when he was making wine. So I have this crock here
Right
that,
on.
that was probably in that picture. It's just like,
Yeah.
it's so cool, so
Hey, it's
cool.
seasoned. It's seasoned. It's ready. It's waiting for your grapes and carry on the tradition, Court.
Yeah. And my grandfather, he loved plums. He loved them, and he had rows of trees of plums
Hmm.
in the back. And as he got older, he chopped them down, because they weren't good anymore. He couldn't take care of them, and so,
Yeah.
but he loved plums, and so some of that wine, it meant something to me, as
Hmm.
a kid.
Yeah. Give it a shot, man. You never know.
Yeah.
You know, at least if you have some friends over to your farm, feed them a good dinner and go out on the patio and smoke a little and pass out some of your homemade wine, man. That would be fun. That would be a good time.
Yeah. Some of the best memories are made like that, aren't they?
They are, aren't they? Mm-hmm.
Hi, Fuzzy Ford. Thank you for coming in, honey. Fuzzy Fort only lives like an hour away from my house. He lives in Ohio here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we got a bunch of rain this afternoon. Okay, so I was watering my plants, right? And I come inside. I'm like, I turned on the air conditioning because it was freaking hot outside. I'm like, I'm going to rest for a little bit, drink some water. And then all of a sudden I hear, the thunder coming. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Oh boy.
So then
Oh
it
yeah.
downpoured. And I'm like, I just watered my plants. It wasn't supposed to rain. Of course, I water my plants and the thunder comes.
God was sitting up there watching. He's got to stick his elbow into Moses' ribs and goes, "Here, watch this. I'm going to really piss her off."
Yeah, even God has a sense of humor, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. I mean, he made the duckbill platypus for God's sakes. He's got a sense of humor,
Yeah, for real. Rocky Mountain High wants to know what your favorite beer is.
Oh boy, I did drink a few beers on the fourth. I drink just a very little, really. My favorite beer, I guess Hefeweizen is one of them.
Hmm.
But I did pick up some Rainier beer just because it's fourth and it's Washington State beer, and I drank two or three of those. The rest of it's sitting inside the house and still in the box. I don't know what I'll do with it. I don't know. I'll drink almost anything, just like food. I'll eat almost anything. Yeah, I had a few Rainiers on the fourth. That's about it. But I'm really not much of a drinker.
Yeah, I don't drink that much either. Well, one, my husband doesn't allow me to, and two, I just don't get an opportunity as much. But if I'm
Hmm.
at my mom's, you want a gin and tonic, dear? Yeah. Or oh, what's that other one? With Kahlua. You want a Kahlua and cream? That's a big one. Kahlua. You want a Kahlua and cream? I'm like, okay, mom, that's fine. That's also from the era.
Yeah.
Good cocktails is from that era of my mom's era,
Hmm.
the 50s and 60s. Um, let's see. I thought there was a question, but
Well, the
I think I missed it.
last time I drank any liquor was 2019 at the family's home in the Philippines. I stay away from liquor because I it's too easy for me to get in a fight. I like to fight when I drink liquor. But my brother and sister-in-law, they live in England, and they make the best gin and tonics. Oh my god, man, they're just
I
to
know.
die for.
And
So I
the key to a good gin and tonic is not that
mhm.
much gin. I don't like it so
Yeah,
strong
yeah,
where it's disgusting. I like
hmm,
lemons and limes in it, and
yeah.
put
Hmm.
that tonic
Get
water in there.
get this, Courtney. Over there, the lemons and limes are fresh. They're right off the trees.
Uh,
You get that, but
yeah,
one night I pounded into the gin a little bit too much, and I grabbed two sticks, and I was in the family's home doing arnis, and just before that, we were going to fly out the next day, and my brother-in-law went, and we picked up three balut because we were going to have a competition, see who's going to puke first. Because my English brother-in-law has never eaten balut. That was gross looking, man. It's horrible. But I'm doing abanico, I'm doing the 12 strikes inside the family's house. And pretty soon, I go and sit down, and my brother-in-law, who's like 260 pounds, he goes, "Bob, bro, I need those sticks back." And he picks up the balut and he goes, "I don't want you getting sick on the airplane tomorrow. I'll take and eat these." Okay, brother. I stay away from liquor. I don't like to. I do stupid stuff.
yeah, I definitely wouldn't be eating that. I think
Uh,
even if I was drunk, I probably wouldn't be eating that. Like I'd be like, "You gotta be out of your mind. There is no way I'd eat that."
no, it's all part of my demented sense of humor. If I could get my English brother-in-law, to vomit, oh, that would be like a victory.
Wouldn't that be horrible though? If you, my dad always talked about his time in Korea. He loved being in Korea, and he
Hmm.
was in the army, and he was um, yeah, a crane operator. And
Hmm.
he loved being in Korea, but he always talks about the time that he ate something he shouldn't have eaten in Korea, and he
Any
got deathly sick.
Oh yeah, yeah, because our
He had
bodies are
food,
not used to some of that
yeah,
stuff.
he
Yeah.
got food poisoning for days.
Any bar fight stories?
Yeah,
Uh, some of that in the States, but when I'm overseas, no, no, no,
yeah,
no, 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 no. I don't want to get in trouble overseas in Europe or in Asia, either one. I no.
yeah.
That was all
That's
way back in my 20s.
Yeah, that does not sound like a good idea because once
It's
you get
not.
arrested, they can do anything they want to,
Yeah,
and you can
yeah.
just disappear.
Uh-huh,
Nothing.
that's right. Yeah. If you're lucky, and they want to be real hard on you, they'll drive you to the airport and hand you your US passport and say, "Don't come back to the Philippines again." And yeah, and you better not violate that because that will be the last thing you do as soon as you step off that airplane. That's the last
Mhm.
thing you do. So I don't want to get in trouble over there. What will we do with all the stuff we have over there too? That'd be really, really hard to explain.
Yeah.
And bar fights, God, that was only when I was Air Force and pre-Air Force in my 20s, and nothing big. Most of the time, even now, I just walk away if somebody's being wants a fight. I just
Yeah.
get out of there. I don't like getting my head punched around or anything or broken ribs. It's just forget it. Just swallow your pride and leave.
Right. Yeah, there's no point. There's just
Hmm.
no point in it. I've never been in a bar fight. I don't think ever. I did make a guy sit down once because I got that close to his face because I was really drunk, and I said a few words to him, and he just was so drunk he just sat back down. I was like, "That's right. You better listen to me."
Yeah.
And that was pretty much it.
The best bar fight I have ever seen was in a small town here in Western Washington. Maybe I was home on leave, or maybe I just got out of the Air Force, but you could feel that charge in the air. That something was going to happen. Something was going to happen. And when it kicked off, man, there was every guy paired up in that bar, and they were just nailing each other. And I turned my back to the bar, and I kept my beer glass in my hand. You know, don't come here because you're going to get glass. And I just waited until everybody was down on the floor, and I finished my beer, put it on the bar, and walked right out of there. Got the heck out of there before the cops showed up. It's like, I'm out. Okay, that's it.
Like,
I'm
yep.
going.
See all these people on the floor? Yeah, I did it.
Yeah. Yeah. I need some bond money to get out of jail.
Hey, SHTF Engineering, thank you for coming in, hanging out with us today. I'm starting the after party here in a few minutes, so I'm going to close the chat. But I want to thank you all for being here tonight and listening to Bob's stories. He has some really great stories, and we appreciate him being on the show tonight. And yeah, thank you for doing this, Bob. I know you're not
Right on.
really down to being open, so I try to keep my questions not so
Yeah.
invasive. So
I respect that. That's good. Because well, you know me fairly well by now. I don't reveal my location or my name, and I respect that. That's cool.
yeah, I get it.
But you
So
did but you did give away the secret that I'm deeply in love with my wife, and you're not supposed to spread that around.
well, you know what? I see right through you and Uncle Al. I know you guys. You guys have tough exteriors, but you guys are softies.
I love my missus. She's the best. She's a my I call her Mrs. Sexy.
Aw. Well, it's so awesome that you were so in love with your wife that after you've been
Hmm.
together for what 13 years, and so
Yeah,
it's
and that was 13 years of being married here in the States. You add 4 more years of Skype twice a day, so 17 years together, something like that.
that's awesome.
Yeah, she's still my sexy.
Well, I'm so glad that you guys loved the interview, guys. I plan on doing this every Wednesday night. This is Garden Talk with Courtney. I'm going to have my show on here in the next few minutes for the after party. So if you guys are interested in that,
Hmm.
feel free to come on up and join us on the panel. You just got to keep it clean. And so we will see y'all next time. Thank you so much for joining me here tonight, Bob.
Well, you're welcome. Thanks for
It's
the
awesome.
invitation. As I'm really flattered. It meant a lot to me.
That's good. I'm
And,
so glad. Aw.
and I'll go outside and smoke one, and then come back in and join it when you are rebroadcasting.
I'm
So
hoping I can share my freaking link. If not, I'll put it in the description again. So
well,
that
blame
was
me if
that
it
was
doesn't
so
work.
annoying.
Just blame me. I'm a dad and a husband. It's blame me. I'm used to it.
Well, thank you everybody, and you have a
Yeah.
wonderful evening. And we will see you at the after party. And have a good night.
Rock on, guys. Peace out.